Welcome, sinners, to the Cinaman podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Tyler.
And today's episode is a little bit special to us.
It's really special to me.
This has kind of been a ongoing discussion. Tyler and I...
We've been discussing it.
We've been discussing this for quite some time. This discussion here about acclaimed movie director Edgar Wright. I had not seen any of his films up until reviewing of this podcast. And Tyler's out to prove me wrong that this guy
is amazing.
I kept dissing him that he dropped out of Ant-Man, and I gave him endless shit. Sorry, Edgar Wright, if you're hearing this. But I will be the first to say, I think I was proven wrong.
I think I was getting ready to say I can't wait to get to do one of, I think, everybody in the world's favorite thing, and that's to say I told you so.
That's fine, man. Go ahead. Laugh it up.
Let's get in right now. Let's go ahead and throw it in.
Throw it in my face.
Ready? I told you so.
That didn't feel good.
No.
I felt it.
It never does, you know.
All the way over here. I felt it.
It stings. It's hard to be wrong, but it's good. It's good when you can admit
it kind of crushed me a little bit there.
So do you want to just start off with the Ant-Man thing and kind of settle that up real quick?
Edgar Wright. I will say Ant-Man would have still been an amazing film. Could I say he would do a better job? I don't know.
I think he could do a better job, and he also had someone else helping him, and it was the director of Attack the Block. Have you seen that?
I've not seen Attack the Block.
If you liked Edgar Wright's movies, I think you would love Attack the Block.
Right.
It's a terrific movie. I think the same person who did some of the audio work on that actually
You're talking about Joe Cornish.
Is that who was?
Yeah.
Is that who it was?
And I think him and Edgar Wright are frequent collaborators, so
yeah, I think they're
definitely some similarities. But yes, I think Ant-Man would have been a very decent film with Edgar Wright directing it.
I'm really glad to hear you say that.
I apologize for all the crap I gave you, Edgar Wright. If you're hearing this, if you ever hear this, I'm sorry.
I think it's safe to say he's Edgar Wright and you're Edgar Wrong.
I'm very Edgar Wrong.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, man. I'm glad to hear you come around because after Christopher Nolan, or maybe even, you know, it's after watching his movies, it's almost hard to not say he's my favorite, but he's at least my second favorite, if not tied for first or first.
Yeah, he's pretty solid. I wouldn't put him in my favorites list, but again, the guy doesn't have a resume of movies quite yet.
Well, when it comes to comedy, he's kind of unparalleled.
He's got his own vision. I've heard he's kind of a perfectionist on set.
I've heard him called the British Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
And I think that's really accurate.
Really, like he'll do like take after take after take, making sure he's got, you know, the perfect timing, comedy, everything.
Yeah, he's a very visual,
very tedious director.
Yeah. And it works so well for him.
It does work well. We're not dissing him in any way. So,
yeah.
You know, let me just throw that one out there.
All right, let's get into it, man. Which one? Let's go with your least favorite.
On just the Cornetto trilogy. I did not get to see Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh, we might talk a little bit about it.
I will have you inform me on that one. And now, I'll just start at the beginning. What I think probably everyone's favorite out of the general populace favorite out of the Cornetto trilogy, Shaun of the Dead.
You know, I thought that too. Recently, I've seen that the responses are really mixed. I thought that everyone would be
Between all three of them, or
yes,
just two of them, or
three of them for sure.
All three of them.
Yeah, I thought it would be really heavily weighted towards Shaun of the Dead, and it probably still is. Like, I'd say Shaun of the Dead's still probably people's favorite.
But I think a few factors, outside factors, help that. It was the first one,
correct?
Right? It introduced us to what would set off, you know, the tone of the next two movies. I think that's why it's probably my favorite. It's just because it's
and it's you
see the first thing of any franchise, and you're automatically like, that holds a soft spot right here in my heart. That's what got me into it. Like, for instance, I fell in love with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom because it was the first one I saw. Still my favorite, I think, because it's the first one I ever saw. So.
The reason Shaun of the Dead isn't my favorite might be because of two reasons. The first reason is zombies. They feel so played out. And when
overdone?
Yeah. And when Shaun of the Dead came out, maybe that wasn't the case at that time.
Right.
But definitely now, I'm so tired of zombies.
I think they were still making those of the Dead movies. Like, Romero was still actively producing or directing when that came out. So
yeah. And like Edgar Wright himself even said he doesn't really watch zombie movies anymore. He said it's like something he just got out of his system, and he's not really doing that anymore. Which is interesting, you know, because, I mean, with The Walking Dead,
Well, you don't like The Walking Dead?
Not anymore.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd say that on.
The first season was great. The second season was pretty good. And then from there, it was just like more about the drama than the zombies.
Yeah, I actually stopped 3.5 seasons in. Like after they found that the little girl, they were looking for the whole little girl, like the whole season 2.
Yeah, see,
She shows up at the end. She's a zombie.
I thought that was pretty good, actually.
I thought that was a waste.
I thought it was a good little surprise.
But I can't knock The Walking Dead. It's like the biggest show AMC has ever had. Whatever, that's something. But I totally can see how you would feel zombies being overplayed, like overdone. I think they had the remake of Dawn of the Dead coming out. Like, I guess it might have been, that was the same year, right? 2004.
I'm not sure.
And then Shaun of the Dead. Like I said, George A. Romero still directing. We definitely had a lot of zombie stuff back then, even with World War Z and stuff today.
What's weird is I definitely get more into comedy zombie movies more than I like serious ones.
And then, that
My 3 favorite zombie movies are Shaun of the Dead, Life After Beth, and I guess that's why I like Shaun of the Dead so much, because it's definitely at the top of the comedy zombie movies.
It definitely put Nick Frost, Simon Pegg, and Edgar Wright into the comedy. These guys definitely have a new thing. They're their own thing, and it's working for them.
Well, they had a TV show before that.
Right, yeah.
Spaced.
Talking cinematic.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely their first forte into
Right, I mean, I've never seen any of their television stuff.
Spaced was pretty good. You can tell it was when he was just starting out. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's been a long time since I watched it. But, it's pretty good. So you like Shaun of the Dead. You think it's your favorite?
I would say it's my favorite. Surprisingly enough, my second favorite, World's End. And I'd actually put it right up there under Shaun of the Dead. I liked it that much. I might be the black sheep there, the odd man out. Call me crazy. I dug the whole like retro sci-fi thing they were going for. Like their eyes and their mouth are like lighting up white. Almost looks like John Carpenter's The Thing cover from like 1980, whatever.
Yeah.
Probably an influence on the movie. I thought the whole movie was just awesome.
Some of the best action scenes in World's End, for sure. Like that bathroom scene.
Where it's like the young jock guys versus
the old...
Yeah.
The old jock blanks, because they weren't actually guys. They were robots who weren't robots.
That's right.
And I really like the whole setup is great, because it totally plays on Gary King's, inflated ego and sense of importance in the town. So he goes into the bathroom and he's going to take a pee, and he's just so upset that this young kid won't pay attention to him and listen to what he's saying. Yeah. So much so that he confronts the kid, and then the kid starts to fight him. Everyone else comes in after he's bashed his head into the urinal.
And there's blue blood everywhere.
It's more like ink.
He ripped his arm off, I think, at that time too.
Yeah, he ripped his arm off, broke his head off. And then it's so great because I think his name's Danny in the movie, comes into the bathroom and he's all piss and vinegar and he's yelling and he's very passionate and very angry. So angry that he doesn't notice the headless teenager on the floor. And then you can, if you watch in the background, you can see all the guys kind of noticing what's happening, and it's just an amazing scene. And then when the other kids come in and they all line up and get ready for the fight, it's just on. It
was cool as quirky and almost mocking of what it's supposed to be. I was actually sitting there oh man, this is intense. Shit's about to go down. I'm a huge fan of ensemble fights, gang versus gang. And even I was just this is pretty awesome.
One thing that happens every time I watch that movie is I just forget that it's an action movie. And it happens with Hot Fuzz too, but we'll get into that. And it's the whole time I'm well, it's just a pub movie, right? It's just some old buddies reuniting.
And that's what
at the pub.
It plays off starting like that. It's not until you're a little bit in, it gets the sci-fi touch and you're wait a minute.
I never remember until he goes to the bathroom. And then I'm oh shit, I forgot the rest of this is a sci-fi action movie.
Yeah.
That's one thing that Edgar Wright really does well is they're all comedies. If you had to put them in a genre.
Yeah, they're almost satire. Satire almost.
But they're also genre films at the same time. So you've got the zombie film. You've got the action cop, buddy cop film.
Buddy cop film, yeah.
Then you've got the sci-fi. You've got your sci-fi action film, right?
Right.
But underneath that, there's tones of drama and you've got drama, action, comedy. It really just does everything. And to strictly say it's a comedy is, I think, selling it a little bit short.
I think what a selling point for me is, and I find movies with heavy British like accents hard to watch. Like I tried watching Snatch one time. I made like 10 minutes in. British films sometimes are just the accents are so thick. Not knocking them. Personally, for me, they're hard to watch. I was able to watch all three of these films fully engaged.
Shaun of the Dead, I think, has the thickest accents. You're going to have a hard time watching Attack the Block because the accents are so thick. But it is such an amazing movie. After about 10 minutes, you understand the accents and you don't care because it's just that engaging. It's that exciting.
I'm all for it, man. I noticed Edgar Wright used, like, all three of his movies had the same cinematic feel, like the same editing style, same like setup, same underlying like.
Well, he's really good with
like you would see like those quick rapid like cut shots that like
it's
boom,
all the
boom,
close-ups.
boom. Yeah,
he's really
zooming cuts. Like,
he's really good at close-ups. So like he takes mundane tasks like putting the milk up or
doing the paperwork and Hot Fuzz.
Hot
bagging
Fuzz,
evidence, writing this.
He specifically wanted to make the most boring parts of cop work look badass, and he does. Like when it cuts to him doing the paperwork and they put on that badass music,
right?
It just makes
like,
the whole scene exciting.
Case closed, zip like this documented the bag, all this stuff. I was like, I think I want to do that, man.
Yeah,
I want to go risk my life out there. I want to just sit there and do paperwork because that looks so awesome.
I'll be a hero. I'll be a hero from my desk.
Right? I'll be the fastest paperwork guy ever.
You don't rack up that kind of mess without getting a considerable amount of paperwork. Yeah, I just butchered that, but
yeah, it's A for everything.
Yeah, World's End's really good. He's really, really good at the close-ups. He doesn't do it so much in World's End, though.
He's good at making each movie feel like an action. Yeah, like I said, he's got a lot of the same shots, and you can a lot of the same cinematography and stuff, but you can also see like the action shots. Like I said, they're like a satire. So like shooting in the car with the guns, like all these epic action shots, explosions behind them, walking away, and then like the other one had like a creepy, eerie feel, like slow moving shots. He made each film not only obviously the plot is in the genre, but the way it was shot fit right into the genre as a whole. It was awesome.
It's almost just as much about the audio as it is the visual. I didn't know if you noticed I guess you'd call it the scoring, but there is so many good sound effects, so much good ambiance music. It just really sucks you in and just makes you experience it. Like it's the most present I've been watching a movie in a long time because it's just so pleasant to your eyes to watch. Like the way he switches frames.
Yeah, and like someone is sitting there but you don't see them, and then like turns around, because the conversation swung that way, and that's me. That's what I was gonna say. The quirky back and forth with like the camera shots following it, like cueing with it.
Yeah,
I fell in love with it, man. It was so well done.
It's just the subtle nuances. Like
I really regret saying that this guy was shit because I
it's
really
on the record
liked,
too.
It is on the record. You can come up to me, punch me in the face. If you see me, punch me in the face because I said this guy sucked. You know
what, man? I think it speaks volumes about you that you can come on the air and admit that you were wrong.
I'm not going to take back Scott Pilgrim yet until I see it.
I was kind of scared that we were going to get on here and I was going to have to fight you the whole way.
No, man, I'll man up. And I have to.
You want to talk about Scott Pilgrim a little bit? Because I feel like you're selling it extremely short. It's their most Americanized. Well, I got to take that back. It's about Canada.
It's
adapted, in Canada.
Is it adapted from a manga?
It's a comic.
Maybe not a manga.
It's a comic graphic novel. I don't really know what to call it.
You don't read it. You read it, left to right. Right,
yeah,
not
for
right
sure.
to left. Okay.
Yeah, I have the first one. I haven't read it yet, just because I haven't gotten around to it.
Some fan.
I'm a fan of Edgar Wright more than I'm a fan of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. You know what I mean?
If would you put this above everything in the Cornetto trilogy?
It's at the bottom. It's definitely. I can't say his worst film because it's phenomenal.
Okay.
But it's definitely at the bottom.
But really?
No, yeah. So like, Spaced. I'd put Space below it. So in my mind, the order goes: Hot Fuzz at the top, World's End, Shaun of the Dead, Scott Pilgrim, Spaced.
So whole trilogy, then Scott Pilgrim.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think the reason is because him and Simon Pegg make terrific writing partners.
Right.
Like they write together, and he directs it, and Sean.
They wrote the whole Cornetto trilogy, by the way.
Yes, those two
Right.
together. I don't know if Nick Frost had anything to do with the writing.
I think probably just like story ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure
characters.
I'm sure he had some kind of input.
I read he only did Hot Fuzz. He would only do Hot Fuzz if he got to name his character. I don't know how true that is. That's just something I read. Yeah.
Danny Butterman? Is that his last name?
I have no idea. Like, I don't remember any other names.
Constable Butterman. Yeah, I think that's what.
I don't know. Fuck that guy. Scott Pilgrim. Hit me with it.
Okay.
Give me the plot.
Well,
Draw me in.
so you don't even know the plot of the movie?
All I know is I saw Michael Cera, which I'm about. Outside of Superbad, I'm like, Michael Cera. You're like,
But you liked him in Superbad.
that's like all I liked him in.
Did you see This Is the End?
Oh, with the Seth Rogen one?
Yeah, when he was playing the
Yeah,
cokehead.
Hollywood was just like I guess he was funny in that, but
He was
that's the
hilarious.
character he was
He's
playing.
he's
Everything
yelling at
else-
everybody about stealing his phone, and then he gets impaled, and then his phone starts ringing. And he's like, "This is so embarrassing."
I think he did the
It's
dork thing
perfect.
so well. I was just like, damn it. Like, I just do something different. Like, I just can't. I don't know. That didn't make any sense to the
I think-
he does it so well not to hate it.
I think
guess.
sometimes typecasting is good.
I'm not going to say I hate him. Sometimes he just gets a little annoying to me.
Well, Scott Pilgrim, if you like look at the art in the actual book, it looks a lot like the main character.
Right.
Right. And basically, he meets a girl. Okay. Damn,
Mary
I started
Elizabeth
over.
Winstead.
Yeah, he does meet her.
Okay.
Okay, he starts out, he's dating a high school girl, right?
Is he in high school?
No, he's out of high school. That's why it's so like,
Okay, that's like taboo. Like,
it's like, ooh, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so everyone's giving him shit about dating a high school girl.
Dork.
And then he meets Ramona Flowers, who is played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
And she looks good
Yeah, she looks great. It's actually, I think, where she's the most attractive.
than any other movie she's been in.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll talk about that another time.
definitely.
Okay.
She does have this one point where she wears this like big sweater that I don't quite get. I mean, it's not super ugly. It's kind of ugly, but she looks good in it.
She makes it look good, though.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So he meets her, and they kind of, start dating, like, or at least entertaining the notion that they're
Right.
gonna date.
They're talking. They're not Facebook official.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
So when they kind of decide that they're going to start dating, Scott gets an email from one of Ramona's ex-boyfriends saying that they're going to be fighting soon. And he kind of blows off the email, doesn't really pay attention.
He just says we're gonna fight.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they go do this battle of the bands because Scott is in a band.
Okay. Are they good?
I like the music.
Okay.
It's pretty...
In the show, are they good? Like, does everyone think they're good, or like undiscovered yet, or who knows? Or-
Yeah. It's weird because you don't get the crowd's reaction because
Okay.
halfway through the song, the dude like does a flying kick through the scene, and like he's going up to Scott, and it slows down, and Scott's like, "What did I do? What do I do?" And then I think I don't want to get it wrong. It's either Kieran or
Is it Culkin?
Rory Culkin
Okay.
is his gay roommate.
The one in Scream 4?
No, the other one.
Okay. So I don't know which one it is still, but
So he's still in slow motion, and it's got that Edgar Wright like feel to it, and he's
Okay.
like, "Fight!" and it echoes, and he like unplugs the cord from his guitar and like hits the dude with his guitar, and it's got these really outlandish, crazy fighting moves, and it's got a lot of music to it. Like the guy starts singing, and like these demon hipster chicks come out of nowhere, and they're kind of dancing. And like the crowd starts talking to him and like, why is he dressed like a pirate? And like, so it's this big, almost Dragon Ball Z like fight, right?
okay.
So he finally like beats the first guy, who like shatters into like some coins, and he picks up the coins and whatever. So him and Ramona leave. Come to find out, he's got to defeat her 7 evil ex-boyfriends before they can be together.
7 more, or that
6
one was
more.
number 1?
There's 7
okay,
total.
Sorry.
And without giving too much more away, he just goes through and fights the evil exes. And it's got a great cast. It's got a lot of pretty ladies.
There's a lot of kind of big name maybe not big name, well-known stars as some of the ex-boyfriends, right?
Well, so you got Michael Cera to start.
Right.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Okay.
At the beginning of her career, I think.
Yeah, towards the beginning.
She might have done some other stuff before that. Then you got Anna Kendrick.
She's in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the girl's name on Parks and Rec?
The main chick?
No.
Oh, the one with Chris Pratt?
Yes.
Ooh. I don't remember her.
Sinner
real-
shouted at us.
Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
You're right, guys. You guys are right. So she's in it. The guy who played not the most recent Superman, but the one before.
Superman Returns?
Yeah.
Brandon Routh.
Brandon Routh.
Okay.
He's in it as one of the evil exes.
Oh, okay.
The girl
He's not Superman,
from 21. No. He's a vegan with like superpowers.
Oh, God.
And he gets his superpowers from being vegan.
Okay, all right.
Then,
You're making this movie interesting, which I fucking hate, by the way, because I want to hate it.
it's really good.
Damn it.
The girl from 21 Jump Street, I think it was the first one, that I think Seth, not who am I thinking? Jonah Hill. The one that Jonah Hill's
okay.
kind of interested in.
Okay.
She's in there.
Yeah. Bree? No, I don't know. Whatever her name is in real
I
life.
don't think I've ever known her name, so I'm not going to pretend
She's
like I'm
in-
forgetting it.
Yeah, yeah.
Captain America is in it.
Chris Evans in it?
Yes.
He's an ex-boyfriend?
He's an evil ex. And he plays an actor/skater.
What damn comic book movie has this guy not been in?
Yeah, he's amazing.
Is he awesome still?
Yeah.
So I really like Chris Evans.
He's really good. I don't want to
Okay,
ruin his
alright,
scene.
cool.
I think you're going to love it.
Okay. You're making me want to watch this movie. So
And
I gotta-
then who else did I tell you was in it? One of my
Schwartzman.
Yes, Schwartzman.
Okay.
One of my favorite actors. And I don't even necessarily know if it's because he's a great actor or I just like him on screen.
You just like the few roles that you've seen him do? The roles?
He's in one of my favorite movies.
What's that?
I Heart Huckabees. And it's annoying because every time I try to talk to someone about I Heart Huckabees, no one's ever seen it.
That Mark Wahlberg movie?
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg's in it. It's more of a Jason Schwartzman movie, or Dustin Hoffman. He's also in it.
All right.
Yeah, so we'll definitely do some kind of episode, maybe on the director of that.
We should do like our favorites. On our birthday, we'll do our favorite episode.
Well, he also did Silver Linings Playbook. That one movie that came out with Christian Bale and...
You talking about the director?
Yeah.
David O. Russell.
Oh, yeah. How'd you know that? Oh, because he did Silver Linings Playbook. Or did you just know who directed I Heart Huckabees?
I already know who directed it.
Oh, okay. So we could do an episode on him possibly. Or we could do our favorites because I got some good comedies for you to watch.
I got some good shit.
Maybe we'll have to do favorite comedies or favorite overall movies because it definitely makes the list.
Now, in Scott Pilgrim, without ruining anything, and I don't think this will, do you see a lot of the Edgar Wrightness that you saw in the Cornetto trilogy?
Definitely.
Like, let's say a lot of the fast zoom cuts.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed in all the Edgar Wright movies, there's always some kind of those heavy foreshadowing.
Yeah.
In some type of way, in every single movie, whether it's dialogue, pub names, like signs and shit you gotta like watch out for. Heavy foreshadowing in all the movies. And it was cool to see a lot of that.
Well, one neat thing that happens in Scott Pilgrim that kind of keeps with that theme, it's not necessarily foreshadowing, but so every time there's an evil X, you can see the number of the evil X in the scene. So like the first evil X, which I didn't really pay attention because I didn't learn that till afterwards.
You see it on like a sign or something? Like
Signs
some kind
are
of background.
like when he's fighting
Like
the
it
fifth
doesn't-
one, there's like a string of signs that go over the street, and they're just like circle X's, but there's 5 of them. I think that's one. And then 4, there's just a giant 4 on the building that they're going
Right.
into. And Edgar Wright says he likes to count his way through a movie. So that's kind of why like World's End, the pubs are numbered.
Right.
Well, I mean, obviously they're going on a
And
bar crawl.
that's a good way to make a movie.
So if you really want to get into the foreshadowing, I think we should talk about World's End.
Like
Because
the pub names.
yes. Oh, well, we could even start earlier than that. The very first scene of World's End goes through.
Like he recalls the night from 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, was it 20?
I don't know. There's 20 is usually the ballpark number in movies. I
don't think it was
assumed.
20 because I think they talk about it later.
I think it was like 20.
Because he says something about it being the anniversary, and they're like, it's not even the same month.
Ain't
He's like, well, it's the anniversary of the year.
Ain't
And
nothing-
they're like,
he's like,
every
same
year is the anniversary of a year.
That's right.
But so what they do is they run you through what happened the first night that they tried the Golden Mile.
All these X amount of years ago.
Yes. And as they walk you through it, there's heavy, heavy foreshadowing of what's going to happen later in the movie. So are we doing spoilers on this one? Because let's do it. Okay.
These movies are several years old. Why not?
So
If you haven't seen it, go see it.
definitely see it.
Spoiler alert, you've been warned.
So at the very end, the most relevant example that stands out to me is he talks about how they headed for the hills and saw the orange glow of a new dawn breaking, right? And that was like them passing out on the hill after they had a great night going through the Golden
The
Mile.
giant explosion,
And
like
at the
Batman
very end
versus
of the
Superman
movie,
explosion.
the world is like going to shit, and there's giant explosions, and everything's glowing like orange and red, and it's dawn of a new age because like the world kind of goes extinct. You know, a lot of people die, and then there's still some blanks left, and it's almost like they're racist against the blanks. Like, don't let the blanks into. And if you haven't seen the movie, a blank is a robot, but they don't like to be called robots because robot means slave.
Think Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where they take the human, they replicate them, and then there's like something in their place.
Yeah.
Think like that.
Yeah. They also mention, I don't know, they go to they call it, I think what they call it, the smokehouse, something like that. And then they, in the exact same spot, in between the same bars, they go there later in the movie.
Yeah, the night they recall in the beginning, it does lay out the order in which events occur, and
like
they are led to during the plot of the movie.
O-Man, as they call him in the movie, disappears, I think, around the 5th bar. And in the 5th bar, he goes into the bathroom, and a blank comes out. That looks exactly like
the first of the friends to do this?
Yeah.
Martin Freeman. And I did not know he was in this trilogy. Love Martin Freeman.
He's in all of them.
The Hobbit. He's Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit.
He was in all 3 movies, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, small role in
Sean.
Very small role in Sean. Semi role in like the beginning and end of Hot Fuzz.
Yeah. And then all the way throughout.
I'm a big Martin. Ever since The Hobbit. Actually, only The Hobbit I've only seen with him in it.
He was
and
also
Captain
in
America.
in Sherlock.
Civil War.
He was in Sherlock. Did you watch
seen
that?
Sherlock.
Oh, that's
Unless
pretty
you're
good.
talking about Downey Jr.
No.
Ooh.
Which, we might have to do an episode on that.
Totally liked Bilbo Baggins being in all these movies. Go Martin Freeman. Love you, man.
But the best thing, not the best thing, but one of the great things about World's End is the names of the pubs foreshadow what happens in the pubs.
Now, do you have the names?
I have the names.
Give me the names in order. Let the sinners remember.
We got the First Post, the Old Familiar, the Famous Cock, the Crossed Hands, the Good Companions, the Trusty Servant, the Two-Headed Dog, the Mermaid, the Beehive, the King's Head, the Hole in the Wall, and the World's End.
And these all sound like legit pub names. I don't know. I've never been to England, but I'm saying to me, these sound like I could just go down the street corner and find this.
I think most of them are based on real bars.
I think you're right.
Or pubs, sorry.
Taverns, pubs.
Well, the Arena Tavern is actually changing its name. I'm assuming most of you don't know what the Arena Tavern is. It's the bar that they filmed the King's Head in. So the scene in the King's Head actually is going to change their name, or they already have. I guess this happened a long time ago. So they changed their name to the King's Head, and they kept the sign. And the sign is basically Simon Pegg with like a old wig, like a king's frilly wig.
Like someone painted him in this wig.
Yeah, I guess so. So they're going to keep the sign and everything.
That's pretty cool.
So
I like that. That's nice of them.
Yes. So when you talk about the First Post, that one's pretty simple. Mostly just means that it's the first pub, right?
Right.
So they go to the First Post.
And it used to be a post office, right?
Yeah.
Which is why it's called the First Post.
Exactly. Yeah. When they go into the first pub, basically they realize that it's got the Starbucking treatment, which it got very commercialized, and it doesn't have the feel of just like a privately owned pub, just like a...
It almost looks like a modern day bar.
It's a chain bar.
Yeah.
And then they go to the Old Familiar, and it's exactly the same as the First Post.
Same.
Like the same layout, the same decorations, everything.
And it took me a minute to catch that when I watched it. They're like Old Familiar, and they walk in, and it kind of starts showing you the shots and them realizing it, and I was like, wait, what? Where are they at?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I got it, yeah.
And the name either refers to the Starbucking, as I've already mentioned, the Old Familiar, so it's familiar because it was the exact same as the pub they were just in. Or it talks about the arrival of Oliver's sister, O-Man's sister, Sam, right?
Who shows up.
She shows up in the Old Familiar. And
at this also, and that's the exact same time she showed up in the summary of...
No, actually, she shows
up... It's not? Okay.
She shows up a little bit later.
I was wrong.
So it basically brings out old familiar feelings for Steven, and he's kind of been in love with her since school, right? And then Gary wants to continue their little tryst in the bathroom,
And for those of you that don't know, Simon Pegg is Gary
King,
and he basically is just the same almost loser, like wanting to be party animal as he was all these years ago. And everyone else has grown up, either as a family, big boy business job. They were basically just almost conned into coming with Simon Pegg on this journey to relive the night from all these years ago. So,
the third one, which I think is pretty funny, the famous cock. Back in 90, Gary was thrown out of the famous cock for being a drunken loon, you know, and the ban is still upheld today. So he goes in and he's the familiar cock.
And it's like, you know, somewhere in, you know, close to 20 years later.
Yeah, and they're still throwing him out.
It's funny they recognize him from all those years. Oh, did he come in like
they had a picture, but like a little Polaroid posted on the wall.
God, he looked like he was in the same clothing.
And he was. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
You know, and he still had the same tape in the same car.
Same attitude.
Like, he's like, oh, where'd you find that? Yeah, because he started playing the music. And
on a cassette.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, that sounds like the old tape that I made you all those years ago. Where'd you find it? In the tape player. So he hasn't changed a bit.
That looks like the car I sold you in 1989. That is the car you sold me in 1989.
And it's still in his name.
I just got a new engine, brakes, rotors, pads, roof, suspension, this. So,
other than that, it's still the same old beast.
The same old beast.
Then they move on to the Good Companions, where they drink and carry on like old friends, which the sign for the Good Companions is very relevant. It has 5 masks, you know, those kind of comedy tragedy masks, the smiley frowny mask.
Yeah.
It's got 1 smiley mask at the front, and then it's got the 4 frowny ones at the back, which represent the 5 people going through the bar crawl.
That's pretty cool.
Because Gary's all happy to have his buddies back together.
He's like, yeah, let's do this.
And no one else cares. Then they get to the trusty servant, which could have 2 meanings. It's where they run into the Reverend Green, which was their weed dealer back in the day. And they talk to him about the robots who aren't robots. He kind of says too much, and they kind of take him away. So he could be the trusty servant. More likely, probably, O-Man is the trusty servant, because this is the bar where he goes into the bathroom and never comes back. He comes back as a blank, or, if you will, a trusty servant.
Ooh. Poor Martin Freeman.
Yeah. Which is funny because that's the same bar he made it to when they were kids. And the Two-Headed Dog was next, and that's when Sam is hanging out with the twins, and they're the Two-Headed Dog. You know.
Dog. Two-headed ugly chick.
The mermaid was pretty obvious. The marmalade sandwich, those were the mermaids. And they were singing they weren't singing, but, you know, it was the siren's call, right, to distract them.
Luring the young men in.
To the marmalade sandwich. And the sign is actually the marmalade sandwich. Like, there's a red-headed mermaid and 2 blonde ones.
So there's the Little Mermaid Ariel and 2 blonde ones.
Yeah.
Nice.
The beehive is basically when all the robots who aren't robots attack, right? So it's crazy, like in a beehive, I'm assuming.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's where, what's his name? Dr. Shepard or Mr. Shepard? I think that was his name. And I think they gave him that name because he was trying to shepherd them over to the side of the robots. Right? That's what's great about Edgar Wright is everything in the movie has significance.
Right.
If we were really to dissect all of his movies, this would be a 4-hour podcast.
It's like watching Game of Thrones. How everything is done or said or displayed all has a meaning and purpose. It was very well done.
They move on to the King's Head, which is a little more ambiguous. It probably just refers to Gary King, and they're running at this point, so they're not in that bar very long. But it may be referencing to him losing his head, going a little bit crazy. The hole in the wall, very obvious. Steven crashes through the wall with his car. And then the world's end, I have no idea what that one means.
Wonder what it could be.
Oh, only the world ending.
I love it when movies have the title of the movie in the movie.
Yeah. So, just a phenomenal piece of work. That's it. I almost put World's End at the top of my list.
Like I said, it's second to Shaun of the Dead, but I mean by like fraction of a hair. Like,
well, every time I watch them, I see something that I didn't recognize the first time.
I could totally see that.
And so the more I see a movie, the farther it moves down on the list, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah. It gets old. It loses its funniness. It loses its...
Well, don't put words in my mouth. It's definitely not old, and it definitely doesn't lose any of its funniness.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
But
you definitely weren't thinking that.
I don't get the excitement of seeing new things. Now, I'm wondering why Hot Fuzz was your least favorite.
Okay. Good question. For one, like, overall, the plot of just them wanting to maintain their village of the year or whatever, I was just like...
It's all for the greater good.
I respect completely what it was meant to be, what it's about, what it is. Totally respect it. I'm just saying, to me, I don't know. It's just kind of a slow start. There was parts of it I was kind of into. I was kind of like zoning in and out. But I don't know. It just wasn't... I guess it's like Thor. It had everything I think I should like, but I just didn't care for it. Plot was kind of dumb.
I think the plot was amazing.
And they both play well. Like, one being the guy who's got his life together, you know, or like the straight-lined character.
Mm-hmm.
And one playing the slacker, the dipshit, you know, the jackass party guy.
Well, the reason they switched in the third one was because Simon Pegg was tired of writing all the good lines for Nick Frost. Like, he feels like he gets to write all the funny parts for everyone else, and he's got to be the stern.
I could see that.
So he, you know, kind of wanted to flip it on its head and, you know, be the fuck up.
And he did awesome.
Gary King was amazing.
I liked the cast of Hot Fuzz. Like, I liked how it had, like I said, Martin Freeman, Jim Broadbent.
Who's that?
The captain of the police. The captain.
The one from Harry Potter.
Yeah. He was funny and had good moments. I wouldn't say I hated it.
You didn't love the Andes?
Yeah,
bet you can't guess why we call them the Andes.
Yeah,
they're both called Andrew.
Bad.
Well, like when they both go off screen and then the one pops back for a second, like that is just, for some reason, that small little shot just makes them hilarious. And then when he's drinking the beer and he's got the mustache, it's so good.
I think because he captured, like, I'm a big like science fiction fantasy type guy, and he did zombies and like science fiction so well, because I watched World's End before Hot Fuzz. I think when he brought it back to, you know, dialed it back to, you know, normal, not as far out plot line, I was like, oh, I wanted to see something.
But that was the one in the middle. That was him.
But like, I think it's, like I said, I saw World's End first. So I had seen the sci-fi stuff before I got just the buddy cop movie. And buddy cop movies to me are kind of
but that's, oh man, that's so
like
sad.
I said, they both did awesome. I totally respect what it was. The fight was funny, over the top, you know, like crazy in its own right.
That movie has my favorite scene out of all three in it,
which is
the action scene
at the very end, square or whatever.
At the very end, when he comes back on the horse, you know, it's just so epic. It's such a like time for business cop movie, you know.
And they made it look that way, and it was awesome.
You know,
like I said, the feeling of what it was supposed to be totally got to me. Just overall, my least favorite.
You know, when he's in the evidence room and he's like loading up all the guns,
suiting up with
that was actually Simon Pegg doing that.
I can see that.
Like, Edgar Wright asked him to do it. It's the last thing they filmed, I think. And Simon Pegg was like, "Why don't you just have you could just have an extra do it? Why do I have to do it?" And he's like, "Once you see what I'm going to turn this into, you're going to wish those were your hands doing it."
Right.
And Scott Pilgrim too. You didn't see it. When he's tying his shoes, like he does this, like dramatic, like shoe tying, and then like towards the end, it's like slows down and stumbles to do the loop de swoop and pull, and then he like tightens it and takes off running. It's just like perfect, and that's actually him doing that.
He makes the boring shit look cool, like you said. Like he has that like spiced up, quick cut action, you know, like.
Well, and it's even got like all the like cop cliches in the movie.
It does.
It's like,
and I love how they watched Bad Boys 2 and Point Break as reference for their job. Like,
yeah, which one do you think I'd prefer?
I've never seen either of those.
I meant which one do you want to watch first? You've never seen Point Break?
Mm-mm.
Bad Boys 2 is like, it's good, but you know.
You see, everyone tells me to watch Bad Boys. Like, no one tells me to watch Point Break.
Point Break is cool.
The remake came out, bombed.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't anything like the original. It didn't look like
Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, I would watch
it. Didn't
the
have the
it's
one.
Actually pretty good.
Was that back when Keanu was still known for his like Bill and Ted days? Like, whoa.
What's cool is he got to play he plays an undercover cop as a surfer.
As a surfer.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the best movie in the world, but it's a classic. Action movie. It's interesting.
Right.
I really think if you watch Hot Fuzz some more, it's gonna grow on you. The first time I watched it, I didn't really like it. Have you ever watched a movie with someone and they just don't enjoy it, so you don't enjoy it?
Does that happen to you? You were with someone that didn't enjoy it?
I watched it with my dad, and I had seen Shaun of the Dead, and Hot Fuzz came out, and I was like, yes. Oh my God, yes, this is gonna be amazing. And my dad's gonna like this. We're gonna watch it together. So I remember we watched it, and he didn't laugh. So for some reason that made me not laugh. And we got over, and he's like, that was dumb. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And then I watched it again a couple years later, and I was like, no, that was gold. That was amazing. Screw you for saying different. That was amazing, right? Dad, if you're listening to this, watch Hot Fuzz again.
Right. I don't know. I just can't, I can't quite pinpoint why Hot Fuzz.
Oh, they've got so many jokes that just, like, pay off later. Like, at one point, one of the Andys is like, what do you want me to do? Go through that phone book and start with Aaron A. Aronson? And at the very end, he's like, hey, kid, what's your name? And the kid's like, Aaron Aarons. Like, there's just so many subtle jokes like that, like, I missed the first couple times watching. And then when you actually come back and you get to see him pay off, it's dynamite. It's just so fulfilling to see all those extra little things.
I got to give it to Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, man. They've come a long way.
They're totally amazing. Nick Frost actually had a show for a while, Hyperdrive or something. I think that might be wrong. It wasn't super great. He's definitely better with Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. But
I like that it's not your typical Adam Sandler movie, not your typical Will Ferrell movie. They provide, like, it's like comedy. They throw it at you. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's in your face.
Situational comedy.
Yes.
Visual comedy.
Yes. A very visual comedy.
So it's not all based on the dialogue.
And there is dialogue comedy. That's the best thing about it. You get your dialogue comedy, but sometimes you got to pay attention to the background because that's what's funny. That's what's going on.
Well, what's so epic is, like, even when you just look at them filling up the beers. Like, they go and order a beer.
Yeah.
Or they order 5 beers, and then he's like, nope, 4 beers and 1 tap water. And then you got the click, drip, drip. Yeah, and he wanted to make the beer pouring just more sinister with every time they did it. Like,
I noticed it got faster, like slightly louder. Like
he even made the Foster's logo inverted, like almost like an inverted cross, because he wanted it to look more sinister. Right. Like, it's not really anything like super noticeable, but it's just one of those things that he's just like, huh?
Check this out.
I'm a wild and crazy guy,
right.
And it really shows in his movies. Like, I like directors where you can tell that they just eat, sleep, and breathe movies.
Yes.
Quentin Tarantino, Edgar Wright,
Christopher
Nolan. It's just like there's something different. There's something, when your grandma makes you brownies and she puts the love in there? Well, Edgar Wright adds love to every movie he makes.
Right.
And it's just
there's no shortage of
a work of art.
It's like sometimes you go into work, like, I'm actually, like, kind of focused today. Like, maybe I'll step up my game a little bit. And then some days you walk in and you're like, Jesus Christ, I'd rather be 6 feet under than here right now. They don't have those days. I feel like they walk onto the set 110%. They know what's going on. Basically, like I said, everyone we've talked about has been referred to at some point as, like, a stiff-ass Nazi on set.
It's how they get
nothing wrong
amazing
with being a
results.
perfectionist. Stanley Kubrick, that's how you win awards. Perfection.
Did you look up if he's won any awards?
Edgar Wright?
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't do.
I don't believe he's won any award. Not that I know of.
Well, he's being robbed because he's a genius.
He's not had a Best Picture-worthy film, but the guy should win something. Comedy award, MTV award, maybe an MTV award.
Is
I
there
could
like
see an MTV award going to like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost or something?
Yeah, I want to invent an award just to give it to him.
Do you know? And I don't know if you know. Do you know how much of the Ant-Man script they retained? Of like 40% of Edgar Wright's material, 20%.
From what I heard, they wrote the screenplay, gave it to Marvel. Marvel gave it back, said, "Here's some changes we need." They made changes that they thought were answering all of their requests, but still keeping their own style and spin on it.
Right.
And Marvel gave it back to them, and they walked because there were so many changes that they just didn't approve. And and
I think Marvel was like, well, we just want to change, 5 things, or however many. Pitched them a low number, and then I think in the end they were like, well, we changed twice what we said we were going to. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, it
Marvel's
just
been known to be shady at times. I'm just gonna.
and it works for them. It's a great franchise, and they're changing a lot of things in filmmaking. Like everyone's way more franchise focused now, and that's cool. And it's definitely the interconnectivity of different movies is definitely fun. Like you even have that in the Cornetto trilogy with the fence jumping gag, with the Cornetto ice cream. Do you know what I'm talking about with the shortcuts?
Yeah.
What, you've never taken a shortcut before?
I did notice the fence jumping gag. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
And real quick on that one, in Hot Fuzz, he jumps the fences.
Mm-hmm.
Simon Pegg goes first, and I honestly thought, I was like, oh man, this is such like a hype building scene. Don't let the gate fall because you'll ruin it for me. And Simon Pegg nails it, and I was like, oh, okay. And then Nick Frost just like, I thought I was gonna fumble over it, but he just destroyed it.
That was hilarious.
That was the best part. I wanted to see Simon Pegg be serious and get it, and he did. After that, I was like, okay, Nick Frost is gonna comedy it up. That's cool.
So it played out the way you would want it to.
It did play out the way I wanted to.
There you go.
I was hoping he didn't ruin it by having Simon Pegg do something. I felt like it would have been out of character.
Mm-hmm.
Like every other movie would have had him fall again.
Yeah.
But he didn't. I'm glad. It's retained character. I liked it.
Yeah.
Just my thought.
So do you know why they called it the Cornetto trilogy?
I was going to shed light on that. I think if sinners don't know already, you're about to.
Yeah. So they put a joke in Shaun of the Dead where Nick Frost is waking up from drinking all night.
Right. He's got a hangover.
He's got a hangover, so he asks for a cornetto as he goes to the shop. And I guess when Edgar Wright was in college, it was his like hangover cure.
First off, for those of you that don't know what a cornetto is, it is a ice cream.
It's like it's like an ice cream cone.
Okay,
it's like it's almost what we would call a drumstick, but it doesn't have like the hard shell on it.
Right.
I don't know if that's the only thing they make, or if Cornetto's like a blue bunny.
It almost sounds like a chocolate bar, which is why, like the whole movie, I'm thinking like a chocolate bar or something.
No.
Turns out it's ice cream. I was way wrong.
Mm-hmm. Just like you were wrong about Edgar Wright.
Whatever.
So then they thought it'd be funny to put it in Hot Fuzz to have like a recurring thing. And then a journalist asked them if it was going to be their theme as a trilogy. And he replied, yes, like Christoph Kieslowski? Man, that's terrible.
That's a mouthful.
Try your best. Three Colors trilogy. It was supposed to be similar to that, and he said it's the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy. So it was just basically a joke that stuck.
Now he says the cornetto,
the three flavors
in Shaun of the Dead is what colors?
I don't know.
Red and white. It's a red and white cornetto to symbolize, like, blood, zombie film.
Yeah.
The cornetto they eat in Hot Fuzz. They eat a cornetto, or someone's eating cornetto.
Yeah, they go to the shop and they're eating it in the car.
It's a blue and white one.
He's
for
like
police.
He's like, do you want to go to the shop? And he's like, we just went to the shop. And he's like, I was thinking of a different shop.
That's right. It's blue and white for police.
Okay.
And they have cornetto or the cornetto wrapper.
Yeah, they just snuck it in there at the end.
Yeah, that you see. It definitely looks like product placement, Toma. Like it just happens to slap up against the gate, label out, perfect so you can read it. It's green and white for like an elemental, like sci-fi
alien,
fantasy.
Almost.
Small little thing. Probably no one, obviously someone noticed if it's out there on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a cool little thing as a director to be like, tease it, keep it going.
Yeah.
That is, I think, probably a long-standing question, now answered, of why it is the Cornetto trilogy. Even what the hell it is a Cornetto. I kind of want one.
I like that they call it a trilogy, even though it's not three movies. It's just Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg collaborating on three movies.
Same themes.
It's got a lot of same themes. It's really heavy on like growing up, male friendship, conformity,
right?
Kind of like escapism. Because like if you really think back, so in the first one, they're being chased by a town full of zombies. The second one, they're being chased by a town full of conspirers who are trying to keep the Best Village Award.
Right.
And then the last one, it's a town full of like robots who aren't robots. So like they're just getting mobbed.
By a bunch of not robots.
They're getting mobbed for 3 movies straight.
They can survive it all.
And I'm sure there's some kind of symbolism in there. Sinners, tell us what you think. Well, I'm really glad you enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, man. Like I said, Sinners, say it firsthand. I will take back what I said about Edgar Wright. I was thoroughly impressed with all 3 films.
You're going to have to give Scott Pilgrim a go, man.
I'm going to have to watch Scott Pilgrim.
Let us know.
I will. I'll definitely let the sinners know whenever I watch that. Probably won't be for a long while. Do you
want to give these 3 a rating?
Yeah, okay. Like I said, Shaun of the Dead is still my favorite. I'd probably give it 8.5 or 9.
Ooh, that's okay.
World's End. If I say 9 for Shaun of the Dead, probably an 8.5 for World's End. Hot Fuzz, like 7.5. Like I said, I didn't hate it. It's just my least favorite.
I bet it grows on you. Man, I hate to do this. Really hate to do this. I'm gonna have to give them all a 10, man.
Really?
They are 3 of my favorite movies. Like I never watch them and don't enjoy it. Never once have I. Oh, okay, that's a lie. The first time I watched Hot Fuzz, like I said, I didn't enjoy it, but that wasn't my fault.
I think just Hot Fuzz had like my least amount of like fun, feel, attention keeping.
I think that one's got the most subtle jokes.
Yeah.
Like if you're watching it with someone who's not paying attention, they're gonna not enjoy the movie.
Right. And I like Lethal Weapon. I like Rush Hour. I like. God.
Well, that's something that Edgar Wright strives for. He wants you to go back and enjoy it a second time. He doesn't want something you can fully digest the first go through.
Yeah, he wants to keep like anyone. He wants you to see it again and again to catch.
Yeah, he doesn't
everything you missed.
He's not a lazy filmmaker. He gets in there. He gets in the dirt. He's got tons of foreshadowing. He's got jokes that hit you in the beginning and come back and pay off later. It's really amazing. You got anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Oh, man. Just another apology to Edgar Wright. Sorry I doubted you.
So on the question of Edgar Right or Edgar Wrong, I think we both agree that it's Edgar Wright.
It is Edgar Wright. No more Edgar Wrong.
Well, thank you so much, sinners, for tuning in.
Tell us what you think. Comment. Subscribe. Share. Tell
Tweet.
your friends. Tweet if you're into that kind of thing.
If you're a Twitterer.
Right.
Yeah, tell your friends and your friends' friends and your mom's friends and your friends' mom's friends.
Get the word out, because without your support, we couldn't do this, and we love doing this. So, if I had to say to take away one thing from this conversation, I guess it'd just be to not be a dick.
Support the podcast.